CX and UX consulting, projects, and training. Contact us for a free consultation.
Hey everybody, it's Debbie Levitt from Delta CX. How are you? I don't know what day it is, do you? It is, give me a second, Thursday, June 11, 2020, and it's time for episode 48. Today I'm going to be talking about design sprints and the many reasons why I do not like them. We are live. If you are joining us from LinkedIn Live or YouTube, please come on in and give me your comments and questions. Since this is part of another pack of slides that I have, we're going to do this like we've done a couple of other ones. As I don't have a guest today, I have slides. I'm going to be showing you my slides. Those of you listening in the audio-only version that I cut to iTunes, Google Play, and Spotify, don't worry, you're not missing anything. My slides tend to be one giant stock photo that I talk over for some time, or they're just some of the words on the screen that I am saying. So I promise you guys who aren't seeing the slides aren't missing too much. So we're going to be talking about design sprints today. I do have a whole bunch of slides to show. I probably have 30 or 40 minutes of content, so I might not pay too much attention to the chat room, but if you have comments and questions as I go, please put them in. And as always, please be specific. Don't just write, "That's great," or "What do you mean by that?" Because if I see it a half hour later, I don't know what that is. So please ask very specific questions if you can. As always, please subscribe on YouTube and ring that bell so that you know when we're live or when I put up new videos. And also, please join my Slack workspace. It's totally free, and it's a great place to create a community there with other Delta CX interested people, and I'm there as well, not a bot. It really is me. So you can find that at deltacx.link, which is my URL shortener. So deltacx.link/join Slack. All is one word, lowercase. And that will take you right there. It's an open invitation, so I hope to see you there. We're going to start doing some Slack-only events, so I hope everybody will shift on over. So with that being said, I think I'm going to move into the slides. And there I am, and take off my name. And good, that's looking good. So all right, so let me jump right in. And just so you know, for these particular slides, I have a set of slides that I use to introduce my content on why I don't like design sprints, why I don't like design thinking, and why I don't like lean UX. But I didn't show too many of these before the Lean UX podcast. Hit the I button to see that one. I'm not putting too many of these before the Design Thinking podcast, which is coming next week. But if it's already happened, hit the I button. So I'm showing them here. So there's a little bit of extra stuff here that isn't 100% design sprint related, but somewhat related. So that's how this slide adventure will go. So let me jump on in. Aspirologies. Aspirologies is my made-up word for trendy methodologies that aspire to greatness but miss the mark or actually hurt our processes, teams, or product. Calling these methodologies is just giving them too much credibility. Typically, they aim to reduce or reassign specialized CX tasks and work to other roles or sometimes an entire team working by committee. And remember, I use CX more than I use UX, but I know for many of us they're interchangeable, as we were saying last night with Dr. Nick. Aspirologies often have ego-based or emotional goals, like non-CX people at our company want to design solutions too. Well, I'd like to help with the DevOps CI/CD pipeline, but let's be honest, nobody will let me anywhere near that. Teammates wanting to be involved in something doesn't mean they should be involved in something, and that's why we need to burn these to the ground. There's no shortage of new and derivative methodologies related. I just want to make sure. Is my microphone working, everybody? Oh, good. Okay. Hey, so as I was saying, there's no shortage of new and derivative methodologies related to researching, designing, testing, and iterating on our product, services, and experiences that all magically reduce, circumvent, minimize, or eliminate qualified CX practitioners. There are even so-called CX and UX experts proposing methodologies that disempower us. We're still typically somewhere in these methodologies. It's just done by someone other than our role. We might say it's done by someone who aspires to or self assesses as doing our work well, but often lacks talent, training, education, knowledge, or process. Okay, so let's keep going. Workshops, workshops, and more workshops. Man, when I think design sprints, but also lean UX and design thinking to some extent, nearly every design workshop or exercise claims it's a framework for solving big challenges or innovating and disrupting. Yet these workshops also seem to be using less and less time: 5 days, 4 days, 1 day. How did our companies go from taking weeks, months, or years in research and development to bringing in expensive expert consultants to only needing a few days with the team we happen to have? Who would suggest that the bigger the problem, the less time we should devote to it, or the fewer domain experts we should let do the work? How long should we work on a big challenge facing our company? I'm not suggesting that projects be more waterfall or measured in years, but the bigger the problem, the more serious the challenge, the more the products and services affect our customer satisfaction, the more time CX experts should be investing in it. Shouldn't we start with design exercises so we get everybody in the room and build bridges? Won't a design workshop, like a design sprint, introduce people to the UX toolkit? The answer is no, for reasons including: what challenge does our product, services, and experience have that our talented CX people can't solve themselves? While we do incorporate teammates' ideas at times, our entire job is to solve problems. Agile Manifesto Principle number 5: trust us to do it. Give us these big design problems, these large product challenges, and these serious product and service questions. It's why you hired great CX practitioners. Internal workshops and exercises teach teammates that we can't design or solve problems without everybody grabbing a whiteboard marker or sticky note. It makes us look incompetent. We must need the committee because we can't do our own jobs ourselves. We can build bridges and do team bonding in other ways. Inviting people to frequent design by committee meetings isn't the only way to bond with coworkers or collaborate. If we teach coworkers that CX is done mostly or wholly through group design workshops, you're setting a precedent about CX practice that may be hard to change later. Coworkers sure will be surprised if we ever try to reclaim our power or autonomy. They'll be hurt when they don't get to sketch solutions anymore, are excluded from a CX decision, or no longer see their interpretations of our research added to the research report. CX job listings are increasingly describing individual contributor roles where you're the design coach or facilitator more than you're the practitioner. The next logical step after everybody learns that they just need an aspirology to solve product and service problems is that they'll wonder, why do they need CX or UX people on the team or at the company? Workers in various roles are getting certification in facilitating these workshops. We can all do this. We can sketch, vote for one, prototype it, and go with it. Any facilitator will do, and we can all be designers. Design thinking and design sprints weren't really part of our toolkit. Some of us have added them thinking that's how we evangelize CX or UX and get people to have more empathy and build bridges. But these are unrealistic fantasies that may be creating more problems than they're fixing. Because we're often so focused on efforts to raise UX maturity and evangelize, we might be happy with the tiniest crust of bread thrown to us. That crust might be design thinking or design sprints, where others are doing some shadow of a derivative that remotely looks like CX or UX. If you jumped on offering design by committee workshops, is CX now highly respected, understood, and funded? Did the department grow with more new qualified UX hires? Did we build bridges and level up CX maturity? Or are people just asking for more design thinking or design by committee workshops? Many CX practitioners have been excited about design thinking and design sprints, imagining it gets us in the door. You might imagine later on you'll expose people to a truer, more complete CX process. But will that happen if teammates believe that a design thinking exercise or design sprints are a complete enough or even an optimal CX or UX process? Will your dream change occur if your coworkers believe that doing design thinking works? And why spend more money or time on a larger process or more tasks? Why would your company expand the CX process to the tasks you want to do if teammates have learned that there's a shorter framework that's a winner? Here's what a fantasy sounds like. I'll do the mini version now so that people are thinking about CX and UX, and then later I'll shift everybody to a process where we don't design by committee and there are more tasks and deliverables. That's a fantasy. Remember that every design thinking exercise or design sprint trains your coworkers. This is how it's done. It'll take a serious shift to get them to now drop something that some of them love so much. We can avoid this by never training people on a watered down mini version of what we do. Socialize, teach, and do full human centered design rather than trying to sell cool aspirologies and fads. Quick water drink. And again, you guys watching live are welcome to comment or ask questions as I go. Myth: innovation comes from design workshops. Let's be honest. If innovation came from getting 6 to 10 people sketching in a meeting room, there would be endless innovations at every company every week. We would lock teams in a room for a week at a time, week after week, and churn out those innovations. This means that design sprints and similar exercises are innovation theater. In reality, innovation usually comes from a variety of sources, from mistakes. We were shooting for something else, but whoa, this mistake is better than what we planned, to more calculated research and development efforts aimed at a particular problem or opportunity. While so few companies are accurately collecting and assessing customers' needs, and so few companies are designing and releasing products and services that truly work for customers, innovation can't be the only prize that we shoot for. When our customers struggle with our products and services, they're not thinking, I wish this were more innovative. They're probably thinking, who designed this piece of crap? There's nothing wrong with focusing on non innovative fixes and features. We haven't failed if we never innovated. Work by committee democratization and team exercises and workshops are sold as ways to do great team building. Put on your critical thinking hats as I ask you these two questions. 1. If team building is best done by group exercises and workshops, where are all of the group exercises and workshops being run by marketing, product management, project management, scrum masters, developers, and QA testers? They all have work we could sketch and brainstorm, but how many of those workshops or exercises are done at your company? Probably zero. This means that the excuse of team building is a lie, since if this is how we build teams, we would do it in all areas and domains at our company. 2. I researched how to build teams online and found mountains of articles, including those published by the New York Times, Forbes, Harvard Business Review, and Entrepreneur.com. 0 of these articles said to hold exercises and workshops where everybody does one role's job. Not even close. Most of the team building advice included get to know each other, understand what each role does, value and respect those roles, lay groundwork for work styles and deadlines, improve communication, set measurable team goals, celebrate successes with awards and recognition, and talk about failures and where things could improve. If you understand what CX and UX roles do, and you value and respect CX and UX, you'll stop holding team design exercises and workshops. This means no design sprints, no co-design working sessions, no group design thinking craft exercises. How will you get ideas from other people? Ask them. or hold an ideation workshop where people share ideas without having to draw exact executions of ideas. I like to call this stock photo, "I can't believe CX called me into another meeting to help them plan or design. Don't they know I have my own work to do?" Holding a week-long design sprint, various design thinking exercises, and mountains of lean UX everything by committee meetings take your coworkers away from their work, sometimes for days. We talked about Lean UX already, separate Lean UX podcast. Look that one up. So remember, we're hurting our teammates' abilities to get their work done when CX requires a steady diet of do it by committee meetings. There's nothing lean about frequent meetings and the mountain of documentation these can produce. Product managers, developers, and others invited to these team events will have noticeably less time to do their own tasks. How do all of these frequent team meetings and exercises affect engineering's velocity, productivity, and efficiency? Engineering's under so much time pressure. I can't imagine they love these meetings. So remember that one hallmark of an aspirology is the bottomless pit of meetings and exercises, usually frameworks and canvases also. We do not need these to do great work, improve team culture, or find innovations or disruptions. To answer the question most people are thinking but haven't asked me yet, why don't we see more people or media calling aspirologies out? Well, we have to imagine the possible outcomes of the public realizing that the emperor isn't wearing any clothes. None of these have happened, but imagine and pretend for a moment. What if the author of the Lean Startup book came out and said he never intended for MVPs to be used by non startups? What if Google didn't publicly support design sprints? What if all the companies selling design sprints and associated certifications suddenly announced that design sprints weren't really working well, we won't do them anymore, and neither should you? What if it becomes generally agreed that design thinking has become meaningless and we should no longer pursue related books, training, or exercise? What if Safe Agile, which completely adopted the Lean UX book, announced that their approach to UX was way off and now they have a completely different way Agile should work with UX? These would all be awesome, but the outcomes for all of these hypotheticals is pretty much the same. Book sales crash, previous workshops, seminars, training, and certifications are now somewhat or wholly meaningless. Trainers look pretty bad for years of selling this garbage. People who paid for training would question its value. Conferences may have to answer for why their program included or highlighted such flawed techniques. Trust would be broken. Why were these aspirologies sold as the best way to do things and are now different or discontinued? Companies would be in shock and asking themselves what the heck they've been burning money on for all these years. We need more people to speak up against aspirologies. You're a change agent. Don't be afraid to speak up. Quickly, we've got a question that I want to address before I move on. Stephanie says, "You said no co-design exercises, but would you say that also applies to things you do with other designers on your team?" No, I'm not looking to tell people they're never allowed to collaborate with their own teammates with the way that they want to. This is more about trying to kick back, push back against design sprints, design thinking, and the lean UX approaches, which are usually not just, hey, UX, sometimes you can do your work yourself and sometimes you do it with other people who are in the UX or CX team. These are all about get everybody from the cross-functional team and other departments in. We're all going to sketch a thing. So no, this is not about that. Someone has posted a link to a YouTube video, which I'm afraid to watch. I hope it's not porn. And it appears to be completely irrelevant. So I guess that is just LinkedIn spam. Okay, moving on. Let's get back to my windows. Okay, I can see my windows. All right, so now let's talk specifically about design sprints. That was my warm up, and now let's talk about design sprints. Let's review some basics about design sprints. There are normally teams of 4 to 7 people, though they could be more. There's a facilitator, a designer, hopefully a UX or CX designer, but I've seen teams go without one, a decision maker, a product manager, an engineer, and possibly someone from other relevant departments like marketing. We would hope the decision maker is a CX professional because CX should be making product and service design decisions. But the decision maker role in the design sprint is normally a stakeholder. You might also bring in subject matter experts from inside or outside of the company. For example, does this product have something to do with doctors? Bring in a doctor or two. Design sprints are typically recommended for when a company, team, or client is looking for solutions to big challenges or answers to questions about product and service design. They're sold as a week long recipe for innovation. Like design thinking, this process is solution focused. Companies hear that design sprints worked at Google, so everybody wants to get them cooking at their own companies and get certified as a facilitator. The design sprint originally existed to help you decide what you would build for your MVP. So, this is another thing everybody read about in the Lean Startup book and then decided they should use because they want to be like startups. This means that design sprints were not necessarily designed to be used at places like Cisco, Lego, Kohl's, Disney, or Apple, or any established company, even if you claim you're thinking like a startup. And why do we want to emulate startups, which tend to fail like 90% of the time? So let's look at the typical approach of a 5-day design sprint. Monday, start at the end and agree on a long term goal. Map out the challenge. Ask the experts in the room what they know. Pick an aspect of the challenge to focus on. Tuesday, sketch competing solutions on paper. Wednesday, make difficult decisions, narrowing down the proposed solutions, and turn ideas into a testable hypothesis. Thursday, create a high fidelity prototype. Wow, fully visually designed and everything. Friday, test your prototype with real live humans. Monday is cringeworthy. How did we identify the problem and verify it's a real problem for customers? Monday tasks include a customer journey map and interviewing the experts in the room. We're evidently not interviewing customers, which is already breaking Delta CX core principles. We also know that helping our teammates understand customer problems and pain points goes beyond simple maps. Additionally, the customer journey map task is done as a group. Instead of CX showing up with piles of research, an existing customer journey map, reports from user interviews, videos of field studies, etc. That could happen, but in this version of design sprints, it's not specifically called for, so it probably happens less often than we would hope. Tuesday brings the pain by jumping right into solutions, even if our understanding of the problem is still minimal, flawed, or biased by what we heard from stakeholders and other business representatives. It's time to sketch solutions, but sometimes our cross functional teammates struggle to get anything on paper. We treat our teammates like anybody can sketch, but the real problem is that many have no idea how to visualize their ideas. They don't know what will be the exact execution of the idea that they have. In my Delta CX book, Angie Bourne said, quote, people tend to talk a lot in design sprints and then in the last 5 minutes throw some input fields and a button on their sketch. They later express their idea more fully, but verbally, which sometimes ends up undocumented. End quote. Wednesday, the cringing continues as the best ideas are selected by the popular vote of the design sprint attendees. The best ideas aren't selected by a CX expert who is likely to recognize which ideas could be the best matches to the customer and solve the known problems. We're going to pick the solution American Idol style via a popularity contest. Now, when I did my research, I learned that some believe that only the decision maker's vote really counts. Well, that sounds incredibly awkward. Sorry that everybody voted for Sally's idea, but our stakeholder wants to move forward with Jim's idea. Awkward. Sketching and voting sound cool and help people feel involved and like they're designers too. But design sprints appear to eliminate or circumvent the processes and approaches CX would use to research, design, and test solutions. Additionally, by compressing this into a week, it sets unrealistic expectations about how long CX work can or should take. Hey, I identified a problem, sketched solutions, narrowed them down, tested it, and picked a winner all in a week. Why does CX need weeks to research, design, test, and iterate? Maybe they need more design sprints to help them be more efficient. Woo. And of course, prototyping and testing open their own can of worms. What strategic approach did we use for prototyping? What method did we use? It says build a realistic prototype on the screen for Thursday, but how realistic was the prototype? A paper prototype is often suggested for speed, but it's not very realistic. Envision is a click through model, but it's not very realistic. A high fidelity, visually designed prototype might not have realistic functionality. So, what are we using for the testing? And how did we test? How did we plan the testing, recruit participants, test on them, and interpret that testing? Should these be craft projects for the whole team? Design sprints invite teammates to guess at customer journey maps, sketching wireframes, and testing concepts. That was our job, and now it looks like everybody's unspecialized, anybody can do it job. Our work isn't some sort of group craft project where everybody in the room votes to find the winner among today's sketches. Do you hang ideas at your desk and ask coworkers to drop by and pick their favorite? I hope you don't. And holy cats, if the first box said empathize, doesn't this look like the 5 steps of design thinking? And quickly, we have some comments there. Stephanie says, when you read it like that, the plan for the design sprint week, it sounded like a summer camp week plan. And Maggie says, I've always thought it was unrealistic to get all the proper research done during a typical design sprint. I'm glad we're talking about this. Me too, Maggie. I'm glad you're here. Let's talk about what I call the magic potential for double garbage in. People ask me, and people have asked me, how can they remove the natural bias these workshop participants have? When CX or UX pros are the facilitators, they're hoping for a team of unbiased people with sympathy or empathy. Somebody says they can't see my screen. Can you guys see my screen? Is all this going on all along and there's no screen? Let me just double check. This is for LinkedIn. I think YouTube is definitely seeing my screen. Oh, yeah, okay, the words haven't come up yet. Yep, okay. The words will come up, people, I promise. Okay, sorry. LinkedIn, you should see my screen. If you can't see it, please press refresh. Sometimes refreshing on LinkedIn really helps. And yes, there's no words on my screen yet. There's just a title. Sorry if that was confusing. I've got animations. Hi, Bill. Good to see you. So sorry for that little break, and sorry for the people who have to listen to the audio version later. They're like, boring. Okay, so what I was saying was that people do ask me, well, I've got to facilitate these things. How do I eliminate the bias that the people who show up to these things tend to have? Because if you're a CX or UX person running these things, you're hoping for people with sympathy and empathy who aren't biased. You want a workshop room full of people who can truly remove their ego, focus on what we know through research about the customer's needs, habits, motivations, and likely behaviors, and of course, remove those biases and hopefully have some empathy or sympathy. If you've noticed that some of your coworkers are biased, have serious egos, or are low empathy, or have a horse in the product and service race, then you can already detect some of the garbage in of a design sprint. Design sprints have the magical potential for double garbage in. The design sprint could easily suffer from a problem that hasn't been researched enough, isn't well defined or understood, or comes through the lens of a stakeholder and not the customers. The other sorry. Oh, holy cats. I've jumped too far ahead. Where is my slide? Sorry. when you hit the wrong button in your PowerPoint. So as I was saying, don't hit the end button, hit the next button. The other potential garbage in is the people we've invited. If their ideas aren't that great, if they come heavily biased, if the voted winner is really a loser, the design sprint may not produce anything useful at all, no matter how fun or cool it was. We can't remove bias and we can't increase empathy in people. With most bias and lack of empathy being unknown to the bearer, it would be fairly awkward to point these shortcomings out to people. The pressure's on us, the CX and UX workers, to check and balance those whose ideas contain bias, ego, or were imagined more from the business goals than from the customer goals and needs. Scott says the UX person might get the privilege to pick the sticky dot and post it note colors. Yeah, sometimes we are not in charge of this at all, which obviously is a whole other problem. One place where I used to work, a visual designer liked to run micro design sprint types of brainstorming sessions in a half a day. She collected all the other visual designers in a room, sometimes with one UX coworker, sometimes zero UX coworkers. Attendees would examine a particular idea, like what's something cool we could come up with for the holiday shopping season. Then they would all sketch solutions. The visual designers voted for each other's ideas. When this process was done, you would hope they would go to someone in CX or UX with some of their top ideas. Instead, they were going straight to product managers to try to get a project spun up to build what they created. This badly circumvents CX and UX. That's bad for product, customers, and culture. No role wants to be circumvented. When one of my book editors worked with me at that job, and when she saw me including that story in the book, she said, quote, "I'm so happy you told this story. I had such an uncomfortable feeling during those exercises. I questioned the purpose and I pointed out that it was a fruitless exercise going nowhere, but I was made to feel like I was doing something wrong and not collaborating." End quote. I'm also starting to see books about how to get your design sprint ideas to make it to market. Well, why weren't they making it to market? Was it because they were crap? Do we want to push crap ideas through just to try to prove that design sprints have value? Not every exercise has value. Start looking at exercises with more critical thinking. Make sure KPIs and success criteria have been established and calculate the costs and ROI, which I will explain in great detail later. So, design sprints, oh, they are devolving. They were originally intended to help startups without CX or UX workers quickly do micro pseudo CX work themselves and decide what they would build for their MVP. Design sprints and the MVP are two startup concepts that can go well together for startups. They're not a great match for non startups because we've got CX and UX workers who know how to test concepts without coding them and releasing them to the public. We've got a product team that knows how to prioritize and create a product roadmap. And so let's talk about how design sprints are evolving and devolving. You've already learned about the original version of design sprints, version 1, which was a 5-day process where everyone involved was locked in that room. I joke, I mean, not really locked, but I joke, locked in that room, suffering from Stockholm Syndrome for 5 days, defining the problem, sketching, picking the winner, prototyping, testing. Okay. But did you know that there also exists Design Sprints version 2? Now, it doesn't replace Design Sprints version 1, it's just also out there, and you can pick which one you want to do. Design Sprints version 2 said, how can we make this shorter for people and better for everybody? So, what they did was they decided that the full team will work together for 2 days. And if you're looking at my screen, these are the kind of purpley blue color. So for 2 days, the team will work together. But then for the other 2 days, it's now a 4-day process, the agency or facilitator or other experts will do the prototyping and testing. So the full team will do understanding the problem and sketching solutions and deciding. And then they all get to be done with the design sprint and the experts will prototype and test. So, and then they get a report of how it went. Next, believe it or not, there exists Design Sprints version 3. This doesn't replace version 2 or version 1. This is just another version and variation that you can do. Turns out that some facilitators and agencies were arriving at design sprint weeks only to find that what the business presented as the problem or challenge was immediately recognized as garbage or ended up torn to pieces when they went to define the problem during the first day. That'll derail a design sprint. So they decided that version 3 of design sprints would not give everybody the work on defining the problem. Instead, a week or two or more before the design sprint starts, the facilitator or agency or CX or UX experts must do all of the work around the problem. Personas, customer journey maps, customer research, all of those deliverables and research-based stuff are not done by the design sprint attendees. They'll be made ahead of time, hopefully by CX and UX research experts and not somebody guessing and assuming. So I want everybody to notice that bits of design sprints are starting to be taken away from the group and the team and the cross-functional team and the exercises and the sticky notes and the whatever, because people found that it was just not working. So that leaves me with a question. What will Design Sprints version 4 be? So I like to say, if we combine version 2 and version 3, what's left in a design sprint that we trust the cross-functional attendees to do as a team? And still imagine that experts aren't fully needed. What's left is sketching solutions and voting for your favorite. So that would mean the experts do the front part with all the problem stuff. The experts do the end part with all the prototyping and testing. You and your coworkers are sketching and voting. And if you look at schedules for some of the one-day design sprints, they suggest you spend approximately 40 minutes sketching and voting on a winner. So I predict that in the future, Design Sprints version 4 will essentially be team solution sketching, with everything else hopefully done by CX experts. Perhaps today's 5-day design sprint will become tomorrow's solution sketching 1-hour workshop. Let's take a look at Maggie's comment. I had a stakeholder criticize me for not implementing his idea, even when we proved research indicated that our users didn't need it. Oh, but he didn't say it to my face. Maggie, you need to show that person the previous podcast on collaborating versus work by committee versus democratizing. I've got slides on there about do not desperately pick what a stakeholder wants just to try to get their approval. So back to design sprints. I hope everybody understood the devolution of design sprints and how what was sold as an amazing team exercise, get everybody in here, we're going to innovate, we're going to design our product, suddenly now appears to rely on more expertise. And yeah, everybody can sketch ideas, but I'm still against that. More on that coming. It's easy to sell a design sprint as fitting well into Agile because it's a sprint. They named it a sprint, and it's been nicely time-boxed. It takes a week or less, and Agile is often measured in weeks. However, there's a lot more to agility than did we fit this into a week? See Agile podcast. If solving a big problem or challenge takes 2, 3, or more sprints for CX, plan for it. It doesn't have to fit into 1 week to be agile or fit into an agile process. Do not be bullied by people at your company who require design sprints in order for CX or UX to be agile. We called it a sprint, so we sold it as Agile. But is it really Agile? Agile believes in releasing products, gathering feedback from the public, and then immediately fixing whatever's wrong. So you could say this is Agile. Well, taking a look at the design sprint plus MVP approach. First, you run your design sprint. Now you've decided what you'll build for your MVP. Engineering builds, tests, and releases it. We have no idea how the public will react to it because perhaps we've done no other testing or experimentation other than the testing during the design sprint. Companies might want to avoid that extra work because, hey, we want that fast thing the design sprint promised. Let's just do what the Lean Startup book says, just ship it and see what the public thinks. If we don't find out if our MVP is a great execution of a great idea until we build it, test it, and publicly release it, we're adding a lot of risk. If this MVP isn't a great match and ends up a public oops, now we have to cycle back and fix this. Do we fix the MVP and make some changes to it? Do we do a new design sprint and go with another idea? What did we learn about why it failed? Are we guessing again? And holy cats, how much engineering time and money did we burn, which is now partially or completely a waste? What did that cost our company? Did it delay other features or products? Are we still agile or lean if we're wasting entire teams' time on product guesses that didn't get enough testing and vetting before moving to engineering? Remember that testing is the QA of UX. We don't want to skimp on that. How much did our flawed or failed MVP piss off our customers? Did we hurt trust? Did we summon the four horsemen of bad UX, my registered trademark, or in a circle? Or did we decrease satisfaction? Did we get bad ratings or reviews? But what if we could test this on the public before we burned engineering's time? That's part of the CX and UX playbook, part of user-centered design and human-centered design. We do rounds of prototyping, testing, and iterating before asking engineering to build the finalized execution of the finalized concept. This means we shouldn't be surprised later by the public's reaction, and we won't waste engineering's time or budget on a poor concept. Correct CX and UX processes earlier will save everybody time, money, and sanity, plus make us more agile and lean. I'm seeing more and more jobs that look like this. It says, quote, Senior UX Designer, Manchester, UK, multidisciplinary agile teams, workshop facilitation, design sprints, 3 months, and a pay rate, end quote. It claims to be a UX job, but appears to require nothing from user-centered design, but it mentions design sprints. This one will only need you for a few months of workshop facilitation, and then you can please leave. When everybody's certified in design sprints or design thinking, will they still want to hire our expertise? I'm concerned about the slippery slope. I'm concerned that we're going to watch our specialized and important jobs be continually devalued. I'm concerned that people think the best use for a UX specialist is to oversee other people doing UX work and tasks. That's a very poor future for our profession because it makes us extinct. And Brian's here. Good to see you, Brian. Says, then you have a bunch of people off to the races on a problem that generates solutions but doesn't fix the problem. Absolutely. I mean, Don Norman rings in my head all day, every day. We've got to find the problem. Aspirologies. They're killing our UX maturity. You cannot evangelize CX or UX in any way and propose, promote, take part in, support, or encourage aspirologies that teach others that we can't do our own work ourselves, that our tasks are relatively simple and can be done by anybody, and that solution-focused sketching is the key to CX. I know it's been easy to latch on to design sprints and design thinking. They caught on. They got people talking about design. You added design sprint facilitator to your LinkedIn headline and you ran out and you got certified. You had people listening to you and you thought it would be the new CX evangelism. You imagined you would get that seat at the table and people will start caring about the customers and our designs. For that to be true, you would have to see design sprints and maybe design thinking creating a positive shift in how CX and UX are perceived at your company. Are coworkers, leaders, and executives taking CX and UX more seriously? Or are they taking thinking and sprints more seriously but are still not sure about CX or UX? Are they learning that design thinking and design sprints are so simple anybody can follow the framework and solve company problems? While believing that CX and UX are large, expensive, bloated processes we don't really need? If you asked for weeks to run research relating to a large and new project, will you get that? Because thanks to design sprints, everybody understands that we must invest time, money, resources, and great workers on the user-centered design process? Or will people laugh at you and tell you you just need a design sprint? You can pack everything you need into a week and even come up with solutions. What are we teaching others about how long CX needs to do their work properly? If you're facilitating Aspirologies, setting up these workshops, participating in them, there's a lot at stake. Nobody wants to say, we just spent $50,000 this week on design sprints, and it kind of sucked. I'm sure someone has some good numbers, but that appears to be so rare that I imagine the failure rate of design thinking to actually be quite high when looked at end to end with financials. We can't cherry pick a few examples and declare this a fantastic winning way that everybody should use. So we tend to protect aspirologies by focusing on emotional outcomes. I found these quotes online when I was trying to research for my book for the tangible benefits of design thinking and design sprints. We saved this client a year or more of effort. We came away with great solutions to test and iterate. We helped the team realize there were opportunities for fundamental product changes aiming at our less sophisticated customers. We learned a lot about which of our users wanted more customization. We had camaraderie with coworkers and appreciated each other's points of view. We had a solid foundation for a tool that would fill one of our company's most glaring functional gaps. End quotes. CX does these things and often in less biased and more customer focused ways. CX would be all over a glaring functional gap if someone gave us the appropriate time, budget, and resources. While our expertise is misunderstood, ignored, or never hired, companies imagine that we must find other ways to handle these things. But the answers have been in front of them the whole time: CX and UX experts. Are you calculating what these exercises cost? The cost to get people in a room and have them stab at solutions? The time and money we spent pursuing the idea that won the popular vote? Whether or not it ever went to market? How much customer support had to help with it later? What did it cost us later to fix? Did we have concrete success criteria for these efforts and exercises? Or did we declare everything a success because people really love team sketching and voting? You don't need these aspirologies if you hire great CX workers and empower them. We can save you months and years of wasted effort. We can keep you from taking products and services in directions unlikely to be received well by customers. We were already thinking about the less sophisticated persona that nobody wanted to build for because they were probably just an edge case. We identify opportunities to fundamentally change products and services. This is our day-to-day job and doesn't require a special workshop or exercise. We mitigate risk reactively, proactively, and predictively. But Deb, aren't famous companies doing design sprints? Well, lots of companies do lots of things we might agree or disagree with. We shouldn't just copycat a company because we heard they do a thing. But more importantly, which of your favorite products and services were created in a design sprint? We don't know. It's impossible to find out. I researched for my book and I couldn't find any concrete examples on the internet of this is something we created from a design sprint. This is how it did, this is what it cost, and this is the money it made. I mostly found general stories that seemed deliberately vague. I found one article about what 10 companies one article claimed 10 companies have made millions from doing design sprints. According to this article, Lego has run over 150 design sprints and launched dozens of products. If we can consider a design sprint leading to a product or service that never gets released a failure, this sounds like a high degree of failure and a cash drain. Let's say you ran 150 design sprints and you launched 30 products to market. I'll give you 30 for dozens. That's 20% getting to market, but at what cost? And how successful were these things? What were they? We don't even know. The article also said that KLM Airlines was using a dedicated space in the Amsterdam airport to experiment and test new user experiences. Well, a live lab of sorts with real customers is a great idea for CX to set up in the wild, but the article wasn't clear about how many of these tested ideas came from design sprints or how many of them led to products and services that were released to the public. The article had a case study about a company doing a design sprint about an app. At the end of the week, they learned their customers didn't really want an app. Well, your CX department could have also found that out for you without burning multiple workers' time for an entire week. Another case study from the same article was a famous coffee company redesigning its entire website to increase sales. Whether or not you start with a design sprint, having CX experts research, design, test, and iterate a new website is likely to increase sales. But in this case, they said the design sprint was used to check which features customers preferred from a proposed group of features. Yes, we do this daily. Hello, we are CX and UX. Could these companies have achieved these outcomes or even better outcomes in some other way? Design sprints aren't the only way or answer. They appear to push boats out, so people love them. But there are many ways to push boats out that won't have the unfortunate drawbacks of the design sprint. I'm not saying design sprints have never ever worked or never ever lead to something good a company can release. I'm just not buying the hype. Design sprints are more expensive than people are noticing, and they rarely turn into released products and services. And giving a great CX team the same questions, problems, and challenges would lead to similar, if not more, success. This is why you have great CX people. Trust them to do an awesome job. As Larry Marine said many times when I interviewed him for my Delta CX book, Scoreboard, baby, I asked him what he thought of various aspirologies, and he said, quote, okay, let's cut the bullshit here and ask them what is their success record? What are their best successes? Scoreboard, baby, scoreboard. What have you done? All these people talk a good game, but they have never done anything truly stupendous. When you look at success records and you look at what people have done in the past and you look at their processes, you realize they talk a big game, but do they walk the walk? End quote. The team exercise can't be measured by the pride people have walking out of the room after that day, week, or block of time. We're in business and we don't get a trophy for participation, pride, or that workshop was fun. We must measure if these solution focused workshops are consistently producing real solutions for real customers. Once we see solid numbers and how much time was burned only for things to stall or fail, it might be time to stop spending time and money on these popular but flawed approaches. In my book, Angie Bourne also emphasized that the team exercise shouldn't be measured by, at least we learned something. End quote. Did this learning cost what we paid for it? Did CX already know it? How did we capture what we learned and make sure it's applied to future features? We hear that failure can be good when we learn from it, but we must document it and find ways to apply it and use what the failure taught us. Aspirologies will quickly undo themselves when companies are more honest about how much time, money, and customer patience these burn. Got a few more slides. These next two are math heavy. Everybody put on math hats. Math hat. I don't have a hat handy. Man, I wish I had Oz here. I'd borrow one of Oz's hats. Math hat. Ready, guys? Here we go. If we want to hold design workshops and large team exercises, as these aspirologies suggest, it's time to start seriously measuring the time and therefore the money spent on these efforts. What did this workshop cost our company? Was this feature ever released? What did our total efforts cost? And what benefits or revenue did we gain? Which KPIs were met or exceeded? How did the customers perceive these features after they went live? What problems did we have to fix after launch or release? You should know the actual cost and actual ROI for a design sprint or team exercise. You should know how many of these workshops you're doing versus how many of their resulting ideas ever get to market. Here is my very wordy and complex formula on how to more accurately calculate the costs of design sprints and other internal workshops. Math hats on. Step one, number one. What did the workshop cost us? Did we pay an expert facilitator or outside agency? Did we have to rent a venue? Did we provide catering? If the workshop was a full day for 10 people, what did we pay in salaries or hourly rates for a full day of all those people? If the workshop was a week for 8 people, plus thank you gifts or compensation for outside experts that joined us, what did we spend? Add it all up. That's number one. That total number is 1. Keep that in your head. This is not a magic trick. Don't show me your card. Number 2, did the proposed winning product or service design get additional time and effort from the CX team or any department? After the workshop, was it worked on further, evolved, rethought, prototyped, or tested? Did it make it to engineering to be developed? If not, stop here. The cost of number 1 above is the total cost of this exercise. Also note why the design workshop's winning design died after the workshop ended. If it did get more time or effort, how many hours did workers spend and what did that cost based on what they're paid? Did they use other tools or resources that cost money? Add these to number 1 above and this is your new total. We're going to call this 2. Now your new total is 2. Number 3. Did this product or PSE is my word for product, service, or experience. Did this product, service, or experience make it to market? Was it ever built or released? If not, stop here. The cost of 2 is the total cost of this exercise. And also note why the design workshop's winning design never made it to the public. If this was released to the public, or I guess I should say if this were released to the public, start tracking those metrics and KPIs. Also, what was spent on sales and marketing efforts surrounding this feature? Did anybody make a video about it? Did anybody tweet? Did you show it off at a conference? Calculate what the company spent on internal worker time as well as any outside tools or resources. Add this to number 2. This is going to be our number 3 total. 2 plus stuff is 3. Also, check customer support channels. Have customer support reps been receiving emails, calls, tweets, tickets, or something else because of this feature? We should also calculate the cost of problems that it caused. Calculate or at least estimate what you've paid customer support reps to support this feature. Add that to the total. Don't forget to add the cost of hours internal workers spent monitoring how this feature is doing, gathering data and feedback, and interpreting it. Add this up, and now you have a giant new total cost that we're going to call 3. How's that look? 3. That's a good 3. Now that's how much, so far this is what our design sprints really cost us because it's more and more and more. But wait, there's more. 4. Did this product, service, or experience get additional work after release? If not, stop here. The total cost of all of 3, added to 2 and added to 1, is the total cost of this exercise. But also note why the design workshop's winning design was released but was never changed, maintained, or updated after release. If the feature was removed, changed, maintained, or updated, calculate the cost of CX designers, product managers, project managers, engineers, and anybody else involved in removing or changing this feature. Note why it was removed or changed. Add all of this to number 3, and this is your new total. 4. Congratulations! You now know what your design sprint and its related efforts towards solving that PSE challenge cost you. You've got the total. Put it in your hat. Put it in documentation. Because now we're going to ask, did it make us any money? Did it make any money? Did it accomplish any goals? Time to calculate that honestly. First, take a look at any KPI relevant to this feature. Can we directly link this feature to more customers, more revenue, more of anything that we wanted? Our strategies, our company goals? Did we make the ROI we expected? You might think, Deb, all of this math you're showing me is too much work for any particular feature or idea. Why should we follow it this closely? Because Delta CX is grounded in proper research. Research is not just about what do we learn about or from potential and current customers. It's also about staying on top of what we release to continually gather feedback, interpret it, and create continuous improvement. You're likely to have a product manager or project manager who monitors some or all of these project costs, like the salaries or the hourly rates of workers. That person should look at the full arc of the project or feature from the concept or the design sprint or the design thinking exercise where it started to where it ended. We should have data on how many of these ever made it to market, if they really solved problems for customers, why they stalled where they did, and if they became a bit of a money pit. Someone should be reporting on the ROI of design workshops and team exercises. We must create real success and failure criteria as well as metrics for a design sprint. Let me say that again. Go into your design sprint with success and failure criteria. I think I've got a more specific sentence coming up. Which metrics will we use to determine if our design sprint time and effort were successful? Did the design sprint fail if the winning concept never gets released to the public? Maybe you see that as a failure, maybe you don't. That's really up to you, but decide that up front. What concrete change do we have to see within our business to know that this design sprint truly solved our original big challenge? Oop, that's up there. So before day one of the design sprint or team design exercise, we must strategically decide and map out what we will measure, how, and what success and failure look like for the design sprint. Be specific. For example, the team will prototype and test a sketch design idea is not success criteria. That's not acceptable. That's emotional, it's vague, and it's purposefully fluffy so that later on you could say, we accomplished our goal. I'm not going to let you do it. Here's what you should do. If we're going for speed to market and low budget, maybe your success criteria looks more like the winning design exercise idea will be released to the public within 3 months and at an internal cost under $100,000. Now, I made those numbers up. It could be anything. It could take you a year. It could take you $1 million. It could be more. I don't care what those numbers are. I just want you to have numbers because this is the main way to know if something is successful or not, a money pit or not, helping our company or not. Start having concrete success criteria and KPIs for your design sprints. Because I believe knowing these real costs and having KPIs and goals, calculating the ROI and the true success of this workshop or design sprint will help our companies know if these are worth doing or if these are kind of garbage. My guess is they're garbage. I can't prove it. I'm sure some are okay, but I assume many are not, and I think they're a waste of time and money. Calculate it, you can know. So what should we do instead of a design sprint? So let's start by getting out of the building. Instead of putting more people in a room, let's get out of the building. Now, that's not as easy right now in the pandemic. For those of you watching later, this is pandemic times. But if it's not pandemic times, get out of the building, gather the cross-functional team, maybe even some stakeholders and leadership, and hire if you can get them involved. Have them observing customer interviews and field studies to better understand customers' realities. If you have a listening lab, bring people in and get stakeholders and leaders and others observing those. This has to be better than people sitting in the office locked in a room and guessing at customers' experiences. Go gather up your team and have them watch our customers meeting the 4 horsemen of bad UX. What else can you do? I like to use my own flavor of a 1-day ideation workshop. which collects ideas but requires that each idea be written like a user story. That way, we keep people focused on customers and their real needs, and there is no sketching in my ideation workshop. It can be done on site or remotely. For those of you who have the Delta CX book, there's a couple of pages on how to do the ideation workshop. If your company still insists on doing design sprints, after they are all done, get all of the sketched solutions, not just the winners, all of them. And you review all of the ideas and executions, and you move the best ideas through our user-centered design process, whether or not they won the popular vote. I've seen some companies circumvent and try to push the winning design sprint straight into engineering or product so that it can be released to customers. Make sure, if you are doing design sprints at your company, that the design ideas are given to you so that you can shepherd any idea with real customer value. Again, any team exercise or workshop we do must have success criteria and KPIs. Calculate those costs and ROI. Watch your workshop outputs and outcomes. What did they cost in the short and long term? Piles of people in a room for days, plus any work done on these things afterwards. These costs add up. And what did we produce? Why did we fail? So again, have success criteria, better calculate the costs and ROI. This is going to shine bright spotlights when the workshop declares outcomes like everybody really enjoyed design thinking exercises, or our design sprint really created camaraderie and stakeholders felt involved. Sorry, I got bugs here. There are many ways, and many less expensive ways, and many more productive ways to have results like that. And finally, what to do instead? Shift terms to what you really mean. Talk about CX without evangelizing. Refer to your tasks and process. Don't call it design thinking or I just do design sprints, but this longer version. Every job at our company is complex. Don't water CX down to try to make it into some children's toy version you think other people can understand. Your coworkers are smart. They can understand real UCD and HCD. Shift away from terms that don't accurately capture or represent what we do. And on that note, that is the end of the slideshow. So let's take a look at what else people have been saying in the chat. Thanks to everybody for listening for that time. Have I really gone a whole hour? Oh, holy cats. I've gone a whole hour. Sorry, guys. We'll have to wrap up soon, but please give me your last thoughts and comments and questions in the chat room so we can wrap this up. Scott R. says customer predictions by committee. And he also says, I've reviewed the bit on the ideation workshop in the Delta CX book, and I'm trying to see if we can implement something like that at my work. Great, Scott. If you know if I can help at all or help you adjust it in some way, let me know. Happy to help. Brian had posted something earlier that I hadn't seen. I'd only seen half of his comment, and he said, the business rarely, if ever, understands the actual problems in terms of the customer or user. It's like marketing. When they say we know customers, excuse me. Sorry about that. I wonder if I inhaled the bug that was flying around me. So, that being said, we are just about out of time. I'll give it one more minute. Sorry, still coughing. To see if anybody has any last questions or comments about design sprints. Excuse me. Then we'll wrap it up. Sorry, people listening to the audio. Whew. Zing. Don't inhale bugs, people. So again, thanks to everybody who joined in today. I see we have some people in, and thanks to Gwen for saying I'm making some good points. Thank you, Gwen. Checking for any other comments or questions before we wrap up. So just a couple of show notes for you guys. Don't forget that Office Hours Ask Me Anything is usually every Tuesday, but next week it will be Thursday. So Thursday, June 18th instead of the 16th. We've got lots of podcasts coming up. Always check the Google Calendar. Another ongoing reminder to please subscribe to the YouTube channel and ring that bell so you know when we're live as well as when I put up other videos. And please join the Slack channel. Our Slack workspace is totally free, and it's a great place to build our community. And that's deltacx.link/join Slack. Excuse me. So if there are no other questions or comments, I think I will probably wrap up for today. But thanks again to everybody for listening to the long version of why I don't like design sprints, as well as some of the early slides that were more generally about how I think all of these group workshops are really hurting our industry, hurting our profession, and teaching people they don't really need us because, hey, anybody can do our job. Just go into a room with a whiteboard and sticky notes and you're a designer. We've got to fix that. Speak up, stand up at work, send them. This is going to be archived on YouTube pretty much right away. Send your managers and execs, send other people this thing. If you think certain slides will appeal to them more, you know how to do the sending a share from YouTube that starts somewhere in the middle. Do whatever you have to do to help get those words out there. So thanks again to everybody, and have a great day and evening, and I will catch you guys very soon in another live stream adventure.
Thanks for watching. Delta CX is available for consulting and projects related to CX and UX strategy, leadership, training, problem finding, problem solving, and innovation. Learn more at deltacx.com.